front office perspective. We do know that DeAndre Hopkins had not attended OTAs, any off-season practices, and he recently made comments on the I'm an Athlete podcast about not being able to play at this point with a Pro Bowl quarterback because Kyler Murray is injured and he's playing with Colt McCoy at this point. Why, in your estimation, did the Cardinals release Hopkins?
Age and salary, Hannah. He was going to be 31 years old, going to make $19,450,000. And if in year one of a rebuild, that's too much money for a player that probably won't be there when you're trying to make a successful run to the playoffs in a year or two. So I'm not surprised. I'm just a little surprised by the timing that we're sitting here in late May. Maybe they were trying to trade him and they couldn't find a trade partner.
That's really hard to believe for a guy as accomplished as DeAndre Hopkins and a guy who, frankly, almost never drops the football. Where do you see him going at this point? What do you think would be a good destination for him as a free agent pickup?
The New England Patriots, Hannah, they went out and they signed Juju Smith-Schuster and Mike Gesicki, the tight end from Miami. But when we're talking about a player that could be, as you mentioned, such a productive receiver, he would immediately make Mac Jones a better player. When he left Houston, Bill O'Brien, the now offensive coordinator of the Patriots, was the head coach and GM. Apparently, they didn't get along. That's something that they would certainly have to smooth over. But from a football standpoint, DeAndre Hopkins to the Patriots is a win-win. To get a caliber of a wide receiver his caliber in late May would be a huge win for the Patriots.
Boy, that really would be ironic because that was such huge news when Bill O'Brien traded DeAndre Hopkins really at the height of his career. It did not go well in terms of the fan base there in Houston. So it really would be interesting to see them come together, but we all know money talks. Before I let you go, Hopkins did some more talking, and he listed several of the quarterbacks that he personally would like to play for. I think anyone would, given this list: Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and Justin Herbert. Of those quarterbacks and those teams that I just mentioned, does one jump out to you?
Kansas City and Patrick Mahomes. You know, we think about Tyreek Hill moving on a year ago when he was traded to Miami. Kadarius Toney certainly looks like he's a emerging receiver. They lost McCole Hardman. They drafted Rashee Rice, but DeAndre Hopkins would come in and clearly be their best receiver, Hannah. So maybe the rich get richer here in May, and that's where a franchise quarterback like Patrick Mahomes becomes a force multiplier, where if DeAndre Hopkins has to go on a one-year deal, certainly to play with Patrick Mahomes, let's say over Mac Jones, certainly could help him for his future. So that will be really interesting to follow in the coming days.
And back to Arizona, just from a general manager standpoint, given that it was rocky at times. Obviously, there were some great highlights, but there were some issues in terms of practice attendance and things like that throughout the last couple of years. As a general manager, how do you assess the risk reward for Hopkins?
Well, I certainly would have talked to him about being our leader and sort of like being the steward of our franchise and being here for the next 3 to 5 years. And if that didn't fit with DeAndre Hopkins, then you have to do what they did today. You just wish they had gotten some value for him because he's a really, really good player, a front line wide receiver when he's healthy, and obviously had the suspension last year as well, Hannah. So I understand the decision. I'm just a little surprised they didn't do it sooner, and certainly a little surprised they weren't able to get some compensation for him.
Right. It'll be really interesting if we ever hear what the backstory was there, if they were actively trying to trade DeAndre Hopkins, who does turn 31 in less than 2 weeks. Mike, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks.
And taking a look at a little bit of history here, as Hopkins played 3 seasons for the Cardinals. In his first season, he set the Cardinals' single-season reception record, 3rd in the NFL in receiving yards that season. But since that time has not seen the same amount of production. He was scheduled to have a $30 million cap hit this season. That would have been the highest for any wide receiver.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.